Normally it's the second Tuesday of the month, but we got pushed back to this Tuesday, but he will be back.
I will.
In 2 weeks, so we'll
That
visit
is
with
correct.
you then. So how you been? You been busy or what?
Oh, yeah. Turkey season mostly, but working. A lot of projects at home. It's actually nice to have a couple rainy days so I can get stuff at home done, too.
Well, you're going to have a couple rainy days coming up.
Enjoy
today.
I know. Yeah, I'm actually, as soon as I get done here, I'm headed over to Fulton for a job. So I'm meeting I'm meeting my intern from Fulton High School and one of my other guys to work on a farm over there. So
yeah, we'll make a quick plug. Harrison Natural Resource Management. There you go.
Show the camera.
So what's that all about?
That's my business.
And what do you do in this business?
I basically do the same thing I did at the office. I work with private and public landowners, putting conservation on the ground. That's the easiest way to put it. I do some forestry work. I work a lot with prairies. I'm going to be working with some rare and threatened species coming up here in about half an hour. Just a little bit of everything. It just depends what the telephone brings.
How did you get involved in this? Did you take a college courses to get you into all of this? How did it go?
I'll tell you, probably the easiest way to explain it is I was given a fishing rod and a shotgun when I was 9 years old, and I loved the outdoors, and I started to look at conservation jobs. And I got a degree in ag education. I taught for almost 7 years. And then the job at the Soil and Water Office came open, and I took it, and I was there for 34 years. But I always wanted to do conservation.
Okay.
When I was a kid, it was in that period when there was still a lot of wildlife habitat. You could, go down the road and see pheasants all the time. And then all of a sudden, the habitat started disappearing. And I think that's what spurred me on. I thought, well, maybe I can do a little bit. I can't save the whole world, but maybe I can just save a small piece of it.
You're in a little corner of it.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to your talking
You
points.
bet.
Get the grape jelly. They are back.
That's right. If you have been in some of the stores lately, you're not going to find any grape jelly because the Oreos are back. And everybody's stocking up on it. I'm hearing reports of people buying cases of the stuff. And don't get me wrong, I did the same thing. I think I bought a dozen containers of it about a month ago when they were stocked up. But they're back. I do put feeders out, and I just make a real simple one. What I did is I took a big plastic, I think it was a protein powder jug or something. I cut 2 chunks out of it. I put a wire through the bottom for a perch, and then I put the grape jelly in that. So I made my own. But if you go to any of the retail stores, there's all kinds of jelly feeders out there. And
is it primarily Orioles?
Yeah. Yeah, there's Orchard Orioles, and then there's Baltimore. The Baltimores are the most prevalent or common ones around here, but every once in a while you'll see an Orchard Oriole, too.
So what's the difference? How do they look?
Coloration. The Orchard Orioles are just a little bit darker. Very similar, though. Sometimes you get other birds coming in, too. I've seen towhees. Sometimes even bluebirds will feed on it, too, because they like fruit. Robins will occasionally stop by and get the jelly, too. But it's mostly the Orioles.
Like how you put that, they'll occasionally stop by.
They will.
So Iowa's been good to you?
It has been. I think most of the audience knows I'm a turkey hunter, and it's like a disease that gets in your blood. And I call it the poor man's elk hunt. I used to hunt elk, but now, if you don't have $10,000 to $15,000, you're not going to hunt elk. And that's a little bit above my budget. So I started turkey hunting, and it's one of the most enjoyable sports, I think, of any of the hunting activities that you can find, even if you don't get a bird. It's incredible. I hunted Illinois the last 2 years and never pulled a trigger. And I've killed birds in Iowa the last couple of years, so hey, good for Iowa. And I have a very generous landowner up in Jackson County that lets me roam around on the farm. It's completely mine, basically, to hunt during first season. And there's all kinds of birds up there.
So elk, to me, I think you've got to go to Canada.
I did. Actually, I went to British Columbia twice. And I hunted up there in the Rockies. It'd be the northern part of the Rockies. And it was fun. It was kind of expensive, but it was fun. And it was an experience that you should go once at least. One of the coolest things is riding a horseback to camp at midnight. You've hunted all day. It's a 3 or 4 hour ride back. And basically, you just hang on and the horse gets you back to camp. We did run into a bear one night. Yeah, that was fun. I just heard the guy in front of me go, "Don't get scared, but there's a bear up here." And the horse's ears immediately went up. And I thought, oh boy, he said, just hang on. said unless there's an issue with him getting real close, he said the horses will kind of ignore him. And I did that. And we just watched the bear. We could see it in the moonlight walk around us.
Amazing.
Yeah, but stuff like that, though, you can't get anywhere else.
I would think not. I would hope not.
Yeah.
I'm visiting with Dave Harrison. Catfish on the rocks.
Yeah, this time of year, the catfish are getting into the riprap on the rivers and streams around here and spawning. And one of the easiest ways to catch channel cats is there's a period from about the first week in May through about the third week where you just take either a night crawl or a leech and put it on a slip bobber, and you let it float past that riprap, and I can almost guarantee you're going to catch huge amounts of anywhere from 2 to maybe 15-pound channel cats. They're in there spawning, and it's a blast. The water's cold, they fight like crazy, and I don't really like to eat catfish. I'm not a big catfish fan, but this time of year they just fight like you wouldn't believe. And it's great. It's fun. It's good place to take kids. You get a lot of action, and you're not snagging the rocks a lot either. And I will give you one secret spot. On the Illinois side, there's the Illinois-Michigan feeder canal coming out of Rock Falls. And at every road crossing, there's riprap on those bridges. Try those. The other places on the Mississippi.
There's your tip. Yeah, there you go. I love catching catfish.
Oh, they're fun.
Yeah. So get your earplugs ready.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember a couple months ago we talked about the cicada invasion. It's starting. Sometime in the next week or two, it's going to get real loud around here. We got the 13-year broods and the 17-year broods coming out basically within a week of each other. So there's going to be cicadas everywhere. Now, relating back to wildlife, cicadas are high protein, and you have a lot of hens and poults, they're in egg laying and they're hatching and things like that. They need extremely high amounts of protein and fat. Those cicadas will supply it. So if the weather holds, in any ground nesting bird this goes for too, not just game birds, but if the weather holds, we should have really good hatches and production of eggs this year too. So there's a good thing. And remember, they can't bite you. Actually, they don't have any mouth parts. All they're doing is laying eggs and dying. They make a lot of noise. They leave the shells on the trees and all over the place, but they're harmless. And they provide really good food for ground nesting wasps too, which don't sting. So, so there are some good things going on too.
Point number 5, check the Illinois DNR website for deer permit lottery deadlines.
Yeah, we're into the Illinois deer firearms permit lottery system right now. The first lottery, I think, is going to end here pretty quick. So if you haven't got your permit applications in yet, check real quick. You can still, if you miss the first lottery, you can usually get one in the second too. And the ID in our website's fairly user-friendly. You can go in and check how many permits are left after each lottery drawing per county. Now, I think Iowa does it a little bit differently. I can't afford the deer permits in Iowa as a non-resident. They're like $600 or something like that, which it's funny. The guy where I hunt the turkeys at, he's always told me, he says, if you ever want to shoot the biggest deer of your life, he said, come on up here. But you have, as a non-resident, which I get why Iowa does it, don't get me wrong. I think they're doing it right. But you have to apply. It's a $600 fee, and you may not get drawn for several years. So you could get rejected 2 or 3 years in a row. But I understand they're trying to protect the herd and not have it shot. And actually, they do a pretty good job up here in Iowa, too.
Just off the subject, well, it's kind of
Sure.
on the subject. How many guns do you have?
Oh, I don't know, 15 maybe. I do some collecting, too. So I've got some stuff from World War II that I've kind of picked up over the year. My wife calls me a hoarder. Actually, I'm a collector. So,
There's a fine line there,
there is a
Dave.
fine line there. Now, I don't have boxes of magazines from 50 years ago sitting around or stuff like that, but I do like to collect. It's kind of fun. I used to go to auctions down in the Quad Cities and buy a lot of this stuff. It's gotten so expensive, though. Inflation has hit the collection market 20 years ago. Everybody thinks inflation's bad now. You should have started collecting World War II memorabilia, and you know what inflation's like. But I've got 3 or 4 guns that I use a lot.
Okay.
Sometimes I have to even use them in my job, and those are my working guns. And then I have some collector guns too. So
What about when you're going out for like the small, like the squirrels and the rabbits? What do you use there?
22s usually.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to squirrel hunt. And
What about a 410? You ever use that?
I do have a 410, but I haven't shot it in probably 45 years. It was my first gun. It was a gift, and I've kept it. And I had a guy offer me $500 the other day for it, and it was probably a $50 gun when it was new. And I wouldn't sell it either. It was a gift, and that one I'll keep.
So now, if you haven't used a gun for a while, or if you're getting ready to use a gun at the start of the new season, what are some of the things you need to do?
Well, I always check the action and make sure it's lubricated correctly. You got to be careful what you lube these, especially the modern guns with. They're very sensitive to over lubrication, and like some of the semi-automatics, I have one called a Benelli, and you can use grease on some parts, but other parts you have to just use a really light synthetic oil spray on it. But yeah, you check the action, make sure it's good. I have things called snap caps, which you can put in the gun, pull the trigger, and the firing pin hits something. You never really want to dry fire a gun. That's not good for it. But I have these snap caps where the firing pin actually hits a soft part of a dummy cartridge, and it relieves the pressure off the spring, and you can check and make sure everything's working correctly too.
Here's another great tip.
Yep.
So it's bird watching prime time.
Oh, it is. All the males right now are in prime color. If you go out on the river, there was a lot of divers out there the last couple of weeks, and they're just beautiful right now. All the songbird males are in prime breeding color. So this is the time, especially if you do photography, before it's getting pretty green out there and the weeds are growing fast, but you can still get some really nice pictures. And I would advise you early morning, late evening are the best times. If you're in Illinois, Big Bend, and you don't have a place to go, Big Bend State Fish and Wildlife is a good thing. In Iowa, Goose Lake, that area out there is really good. You'll see a lot of different birds coming
Where's
through
that
there
at in
too.
Illinois, Big Bend?
South of Prophetstown, south and a little bit west between Erie and Prophetstown. Okay. It's 2,400 acres, I think, and it's mostly floodplain, Rock River floodplain with a little bit of upland sand and prairie on it. But there's all kinds of different songbirds down there. It's amazing.
Always interested visiting with you. So we're going to wrap things up with the villain of the month.
Yes, multiflora rose. For those of you who may have a rural background, you've probably waded through multiflora rose patches and come out looking like you went through a sword fight. I remember hunting as a kid. There were always game in these patches, but I would come home and my pants were just shredded and my legs looked like somebody stuck pins in all over. It's an invasive species, came from Asia, and it was brought over here for wildlife habitat and living fences. And I remember as a kid planting it, but that was a mistake. The good thing is you folks in Iowa found a virus that actually kills it. And there was some commercial talk going on about that virus, but some of the commercial rose growers found out about it, and the virus doesn't discriminate between the multiflora and the actual roses. So that was kind of kiboshed. But if you see a multiflora rose bush that's beet red, that's one that's infected with the virus, and it's going to die. So what you can do is cut a branch off of that, put a small cut in a healthy multiflora rose, and rub that cut end onto that cut. You'll actually infect the other multiflora rose. So,
garlic mustard, that's not a good thing at all.
Yeah, that's one that's blooming right now. And I would suggest if you can pull it, get it out of the timber, because a lot of times those flowers, even though it's out of the soil, will develop into seeds. And the more you can get that stuff out of your timbers, the better off you are. So.
People want to find out more information about what you all do. How can they best do that, Dave?
You can call the SWCD office at 815-772, 3800, and then it's number 3 on the phone. You'll hit a computer, but just hit 3, and you'll get Tricia, and she can get people my contact information. That's probably the easiest way.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Thanks
bet.
so much.
You're listening to AM 1340 KROS, Clinton, Iowa.
FM 105.9.
And KROSradio.com.
This is Radio Iowa. 8 more counties, 9 total now, are declared disaster areas by the governor, which allows the use of state resources in the